It was the lure of cheap land that drew pioneers like Ethan Allen, Seth Warner, and Justice Sherwood to leave Connecticut in one of the first great migrations in colonial New England. The virgin wilderness of the New Hampshire grants, as Vermont was once called, attracted farmers from across Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New York, where their fathers' fields had become unaffordable or parceled among too many sons. Some were religious separatists rejecting the Calvinist dogmas and taxes imposed by established Protestant churches to follow the new light of a spiritual great awakening across New England. These pilgrim settlers brought their children and households on horseback through the woods from Massachusetts, following native trails too narrow for a cart. What limited their numbers were the hardships of daily life on the northern frontier. Winters ran wicked cold, with blinding blizzards and avalanches of ice. Blood-sucking gnats and mosquitoes infested the humid summers. Rattlesnakes coiled among the rocks. Wolves stalked the shadows. Hacking a plot from such dense forest demanded back-breaking toil from dawn to dusk. And a screaming catamount, the fiercest predator, could vault a split-rail fence and destroy a homesteader's livestock and livelihood in seconds. Misfits in colonial society, whether hellraisers, fugitives, or down on their luck like Ethan Allen, found an outlet for their frustrations in the vast backcountry of the Grants, so named for several million acres that New Hampshire's colonial governor, Benning Wentworth, granted for settlement between 1749 and 1764. The Crown encouraged governors like Wentworth to attract immigrants by offering them land to clear and cultivate. Land in 18th century America was wealth for the taking. In a colonial society without banks or negotiable credit, property was the route to social status in an ostensibly classless society. Speculators vied to buy and flip grants for profit. Where fortunes could be made, rascals and mischief followed. The hierarchy of self-interest extended upward to Governor Wentworth, who grew rich on the commissions and fees he charged, and the 500 prime acres he reserved for himself in each township he created. He would charter and sell off nearly 3 million acres in 135 such townships, from the Connecticut River to Lake Champlain, until he ran out of land. The first he named after himself, Bennington. Once the sun dropped below the rim of surrounding hills, Wentworth's paper townships plunged into pitch blackness, lit only by moonlight, the firefly flicker of campfires, and glowing cabin hearths. The journey was best undertaken in late winter, when the trammeled snow stayed frozen enough to make travel easier, before the ice thawed into a springtime morass of mud. Families who could afford them rode sleighs or pushed sleds up the frozen Connecticut River or Lake Champlain. They herded cattle and sheep through the valleys and foothills, passing up marginal tracts in expectation of better land ahead. Wives and children walked if there was no room in the ox carts or sledges stuffed with farm and household implements. The more intrepid sallied forth to claim and clear their land, building a hovel habitable enough for their families to join them after the next winter. The earliest homes in the New Hampshire grants looked nothing like the tidy farms left behind in Connecticut or Massachusetts. Logs were felled and notched to frame a cabin. More logs, split and hewed, made a floor. Bark covered the roof. Sticks plastered with clay became walls. Axes and augers were used to build a table, benches, and bedsteads. A large rock flanked by smaller stones formed the fireplace. The huts filled with smoke and leaked with rain, and were occupied before they were habitable. In winter, hefty logs would be fed into the fire and kept ablaze, not just for warmth, but also to keep away predators. Homesteaders slept on their unburned wood piles, swaddled in animal pelts. When the French and Indian War spilled into New England, its militias marched north to fight for the English king, hacking a road through the forests to Lake Champlain. The peace that followed France's surrender of Quebec in 1760 opened up the New Hampshire grants as prime real estate. Veterans coming home from the war raved about fertile topsoil, and trees so